Even with increased anxieties brought about by war in Iraq, international terrorism and SARS, we gathered in Melbourne 66 strong for the long trip to Poland to join 3,000 participants from around the world for the March of the Living. I'm Ross Bark, a filmmaker on the program as videographer for the Australian group.
You don't get lost.
As part of the precautions in regard to SARS, arriving in Singapore, the group dons gloves and masks in what becomes a perfect photo opportunity.
The air smells nice.
The
and I'm
air,
hungry.
despite all the pollution and overcrowdedness, etc., etc.
It smells cold.
It's extremely good because it's not stuffy airplane air.
It's wet, it's cold. I want to get on a plane and leave.
Fourth generation being our children, they won't be able to know a survivor like we do, such as we still know our grandparents, and my grandparents were in the Holocaust.
We did Holocaust units at school, we did all of that, but I feel like we've really become very desensitized to it. I want to go see it. Like, I want to kind of feel an emotional thing.
I honestly say you'll be frightened, you'll be shocked, but
I think we'll just take it as it
what
goes.
your own emotions feel for it. It should be an amazing experience and journey.
It's really, really hard to believe that, I don't know, that we're actually here
I
right
can't
now.
believe I'm in London right now.
We arrive at Gatwick Airport after our 2-hour bus trip from Heathrow to connect with our flight to Krakow, where we have the opportunity for some well-needed exercise combined with introductions.
Circle. What you have to give us very quickly is your name, something you're going to bring on the trip, and a very, very quick exercise here.
I'm going to bring a camera and I'll take photos.
My name's Alex. And
I'm Jess, and I'm going to bring my cookie kettle.
My name is Mimi, and I tour
This is my exercise.
I'm Diane, and I'm taking my camera as well so we can wait on the joke.
I'm David, I'm bringing all of you with us, so I think we better start doing
Actually eaten a
It's surreal at the
baguette.
moment.
Anyone tired?
It hasn't really hit me that I'm actually on my way to
even try
Thailand at the moment.
you want to know what
Straight that.
15 zloty, bedel.
Arriving in Krakow to unexpected fine and warm weather, we are met by our Polish guides.
my name's Eva, I'll be your guide. We are part of the very, very big group who arrived from all over the world to participate in the March of the Living.
And immediately begin our tour visiting the old city, Market Square. We then go straight to an Erev Yom HaShoah ceremony, where we also meet the other march participants from around the world.
Very anxious. I really, what can I tell you? I don't know till I get there. I am very upset and feeling low, and just to go to a place where we know that so many people have died there.
Yesterday we went to Krakow, we went to the market square,
It was very, very beautiful, but I kind of felt the negative side of it because when I was looking at all the houses, I was thinking how Jews used to live there and how they were taken out of their houses.
It was unbelievable for me to have everyone together and just to show that we're still here, we're still strong. I found that unbelievable.
Really looking forward to the match because I think it'll be a really good experience with just the 5,000 people from all over the world united for the same cause.
Exactly the same shape, same colour, everything. That's communist here. That's communist ideology there. So it's just interesting to see when we go out of the city, which areas were either destroyed during the war and needed replacement like Warsaw, or which areas like Krakow were completely not untouched by the war, so hence look like they did when our grandparents would have been there, and great-grandparents would have been there.
Very excited for the march, just everyone together, it'll be really good, and I'm looking forward to it, to see what it's going to be like.
Yesterday we saw the beauty of Poland and Krakow, and today we go to Auschwitz.
Yesterday in Kashmir and in the market square, wherever we were going, it was all about life and culture, and it was amazing. I think today is almost a contradiction of that. We're really going, and we're going to a place of death. But I think in the midst of that, what the March of Delivery was all about is the fact that there's life there. There are 3,500 of us walking, all in the same jackets, all with the connection that we're Jewish.
Auschwitz-Birkenau was the largest of the concentration camps, where a sixth of the Jews were murdered in Auschwitz-Birkenau in the gas chambers there. Over 1 million Jews were murdered here where we're going today. These are the original railway lines where Jewish people were transported from all over occupied Europe, from over 30 different countries to Auschwitz.
No human condition is more miserable than this.
My boo-boo was born and grew up in the town of Ostvention alongside her best friend. They did everything together and they were inseparable. Little did they know that their closeness and a special bond would help them survive. Together the girls were told they were going to die, and together they learned what will be will be. The most amazing of all, the best friends shared the experience of liberation together, of learning we became free, yet at the same time all alone.
We march here in silence, not a sound in the air, but with music in our heart, of song and prayer. We stand here proud, as one and all. We are Jews, we are back, you didn't bring us down.
We remember those who died because they were just like me and you, not hated for any reason, but because they were born a Jew. I can see my grandpa's face as he stood here in the night. I can see my family who could not live to stand the fight.
ארצי מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה שנחנקו על קידוש השם על ידי הצוררים הגרמנים ימח שמם וזכרם בעבור
With the participation of thousands of students from all corners of the world, together with survivors, religious leaders.
אני גאה.
I wonder whether these locals actually know what we are marching for. While we choose to march in silence, it felt fitting when the Israelis started to sing.
Did you say the...
As we approach the gates of the Birkenau death camp, after the 3-kilometre walk from Auschwitz, the sunny weather we have experienced since arriving in Poland does little to hide the feeling of horror that prevails here.
The first day of Shavuot, we do transports. First day Shavuot and second day Shavuot. And I was taken with my in-laws, my mother and my father-in-law, and the rest of the people around to Auschwitz. When I arrived, they said, through this gate, and we got off from the cattle wagons. Mengele came, we were on groups of 5, women and girls on the right, and men and boys, children on the left. My mother-in-law didn't have girls, daughters, only my husband, who is still alive, he will be 90 next month. We are 63 years married. Mengele came and selected, like she told before, that to the right, that to the left. We didn't know then what the selection means. So she grabbed my arm again, my hand, and she said, the Hungarian, don't go anywhere, because I will work twice as hard, and if I have one slice of bread, half will be yours. And Mengele came, he pushed me again, and he had a stick like that, and on one side he had a piece of wood like a big ball, and he hit me very hard. I am a miracle survivor.
This is the time to hold hands together, to share responsibility, and to fight against the denial of the Holocaust. And we'll say here in Birkenau, never again, never again, never again, and with God's help, we will succeed.
July 82. A car stopped midnight, 2 elegant people. They saw me with another Jewish appearance guy standing, speaking in the road. Jews, he shouted. Did you pay the bill for the gas you used in the chambers? we owe them a bill. We didn't pay enough. הנה קם העם היהודי מתוך האפר המפוזר במחנות ההשמדה, וחלק מהאפר של אחינו ואחיותינו עדיין מצוי כאן בבירקנאו.
Never shall I forget those flames which consume my faith forever. For this is the place of eternal night. Never will there be sun here.
Here I stand in the midst of Auschwitz. I shut my eyes, thousands stagger by. I have trodden this path too many times before, felt it sodden with blood and the prayers of those who swore they would survive.
Defamation, infiltration, reasoning out the door, persecution, executions.
And my Zeta Marta were taken out of their homes and brought to Auschwitz. So today, I'm here, standing in the same place that they probably did over 50 years ago, telling you all about their lives in Auschwitz.
But he was very lucky. He came at the end. He spent nearly 3 years in Lodja Ghetto, because the Lodja Ghetto was the last ghetto to be liquidated. But then when they got to Auschwitz, it was very late. The Russians were already coming, and they didn't have enough time to give him even a tattoo. So he didn't stay very long there. He always was telling me terrible things, that they were cold and hungry, and how they used to get warm. They used to stand bodies next to bodies. He always remembered to tell me that he was hungry and he was cold and horrible things, but he could never come back to this place. But his father passed away 5 days before liberation, and he all his life could not forgive himself that he survived, which is correct. He was a young boy of 17, to continue the family. But it bothered him all the years. He had terrible nightmares because he lost his father there. But then, when he got to Australia and he met me, and he got married, and he said God was very good to him because he had family to continue the candle, like we all say, we're lighting a candle for you guys to continue our nation.
I'm feeling quite horrible at the moment, thinking about the people who perished here, especially family members.
That were stuff were made this up that actually didn't like Jews anyway, and they couldn't really care whether people died.
There was this one really famous rabbi, and everyone bribed this guy to get him on the list. And then, they didn't know he wasn't on the list to go to this factory until he got on the train.
הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, יוציאם מצרה.
Which one?
Happy birthday to you.
Good husband. Good job, you know.
I'm Mieszko and this is Chris. And we would like to welcome you in our school and in front of the Tree of Peace. We welcome you with the whole Poland.
Shalom Aleichem. Heaven Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. Heaven Shalom Aleichem. Heaven Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.
Our school is the biggest school in Krakow. There are about 1,400 people.
My grandfather was fight with the Germans, for example, and they don't like nations, for example, like Germans, and it's difficult for them when, for example, I meet with Germans, but I understand them.
Just basically thank you very much for your hospitality and showing us around and being very nice and those who go to the school on behalf of us, so thank you.
I work at the Holocaust Museum in Melbourne, and before I left, one of the survivors I work with asked me if I could take her book to Poland and give it to someone to read. And I think that this is a perfect place for me to leave this book. The woman's name is Lucia Haverfield. She was 8 years old when the war broke out. She lost most of her family, including her 4-year-old brother. And so I'd like to present this book.
Well, the question was asked from one of our Australian children to a Polish boy from this school. How do you feel about marching yesterday to Auschwitz to Birkenau? And the boy said, look, I really don't know how I feel, but we don't have any Jews here now. We don't know how Jews is supposed to look like. But 100 years ago, from our grandparents, Jews were not very liked here because they're supposed to have been rich and looking different.
Come on, Cross!
I thought it was very nice when we first arrived. They seemed very open-minded and very hospitable, but as soon as we came outside, we were just slapped in the face with a bit of anti-Semitism with some students writing "Go away Jews" on the ground.
Really?
Yeah, and I just think that was a bit of a shock and just made us realise that there was 30 kids out of 1,500 in the school who were accepting towards Jews, but the rest of the school actually weren't feeling the same.
As you can see, a cemetery that is still operating. There are graves here. There's one at the entrance from 1985. People are still being buried here. It's a very ancient Jewish cemetery. If you look on the walls next to where we're walking and on the walls surrounding it, that's made up of tombstones of matzavot that were desecrated, that were broken.
When we visit the old Jewish quarter, it's surreal. As we walk the cobblestone streets and see the lost, vibrant Jewish culture that once existed here.
Amazing to see the life that once was in Poland. Now it's just empty. There's nothing left except for museums. This pharmacy, owned by Taras Pankiewicz, was called Apteka. A reduction of the size of the ghetto placed the pharmacy on its very border. Pankiewicz used this position astride the new boundary to smuggle Jews out and smuggle food and medical supplies.
Visiting one of the remaining walls of the Krakow ghetto, we are greeted with a silent stare from one of the locals.
The Germans aimed, fired and fell dead.
It was his way of smuggling food to the Jews. Without him stepping in, the guards would have beaten me until I was dead.
Chucks were standing ready to go. The loudspeakers played children's songs.
James, how old are you?
Lublin was the centre of mass extermination of Jews during the Holocaust. In the 16th century, 1541, one of the first slums. Aleph stands for one. There's only one thing that's one.
It was a matter of special pride to us to destroy this Talmudic academy, known as the greatest in Poland.
Men die like flies in the thoroughfares, their bodies strewn on the roadway like old stucco men place the babies on the dune, and one of them shot one with a machine gun.
In vain perished, why or wherefore, without fight and battle or call to war.
mother was your age. My mother was exactly 16 years old when she came to Majdanek. My mother went from here to Auschwitz, and she always said to us, I have an older brother, myself, always, the 2 months she spent here were worse than the 2 years she spent in Auschwitz. You barely ever meet anyone who came from Majdanek. There are very, very few survivors who ever left this place alive. She lost her father here. My mother and my grandmother had survived together and left. The part that I perhaps find hardest to tell you and deal with, and I think many of us who are second generation people, a lot of us grow up with this strange idea, and it's hard to fathom, that we aren't supposed to be alive. The Nazis did what they wanted to do. A lot of us, a lot of you, we're not supposed to be here. And I take that very literally because I know that my mother tried to commit suicide here. My mother tried to throw herself against the electric wire, and that my grandmother went and grabbed her just before she did that. I don't know how old I was when I first heard that, but it's something that I've lived with all my life. And so when I've come here, it's the third time that I've come here, that sense of I'm not supposed to be alive is extremely concrete for me.
כשהלב בוכה, רק אלוהים שומע, הכאב עולה מתוך הנשמה, אדם נופל לפני שהוא שוקע, בתפילה קטנה חותכת הדממה, שמע ישראל אלוהי אתה כל יכול, נתת לי את חיי, נתת לי הכל, בעיניי דמעה הלב בוכה בשקט, וכשהלב שותק הנשמה זועקת, שמע ישראל אלוהי עכשיו אני לבד.
You wanted to give me a hug. Could I refuse?
It's all a very big shock going through there. I knew I'd react, I knew I'd cry, but you can't really know what to expect when you go through a place like this.
We're sitting in Majdanek camp. To the left of me are brightly coloured houses, and to the right of me are gas chambers. It's a contrast to see Polish kids riding their bicycles next door, screaming and giggling, whilst we're here commemorating our grandparents and other fellow Jews who were murdered here.
כשהלב בוכה, הזמן עומד מלכת, האדם רואה את כל חייו פתאום, אל הלא נודע הוא לא רוצה ללכת, לאלוהיו קורא על סף תהום.
שפתי תפתח, אופי יגיד תהילתך, השם שפתי תפתח, אופי יגיד תהילתך.
שמע ישראל אלוהי עכשיו אני חזק אותי אלוהי, עשה שלא אבחר, הכאב גדול ואין לאן לברוח, עשה שיגמר כי לא נותר בי כוח.
I used to live
done, and that's when it really hit me. And I'm sitting outside a gas chamber and writing in my diary how I felt, and that kind of pushed me over.
All together, just like all connecting as like it was just really strong. Everyone there, or like the Israelis together.
There, and I saw Torah scrolls, and that wasn't like really weird to think that like when those people bring it into the camps and kept it, and like still throughout all of this they still like had hope and believed in like God and were praying and stuff.
Walking in those doors at the start was one of the scariest things, if not the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
It's a part of someone's belt that I just broke down when I saw that. I just couldn't believe it.
I came out of the gas chambers and I was in the state that I was, and I saw that boy ride by on a bicycle and smile at us. It really, really, really hurt me.
And I take for granted so much that I've got, and I think that we grow as a result.
It'll just keep going. You know, you've got a whole generation of people that know their grandparents' stories, have experienced marginal living in Poland, know, like, they've entered the gas chambers and they've felt the emotions. And then I think that's just, we are the generation to pass it on, and I think this program gives us the perfect opportunity.
As we drove the 1.5 hours to Warsaw for the night, after such an emotional and sad day, it wasn't surprising that we ended it with some boisterous singing.
You're looking in the wrong direction.
Tough day yesterday, but hopefully it'll be a bit better today.
This place is a cemetery of Otwock Jews, and you will find here on a large area, about 2 square kilometers, about 400 tombstones. You will find here on the tombstones inscriptions in Hebrew, Yiddish, Polish, Russian and German. There are groups of 2 Polish high schools. You have learned one on the bus, at least part of you. There's yet another group from another high school, and I think that you will be able to get friendly during this time on the cemetery. This is Father Lemański, who is a parish priest of the parish located in between Otwock and Karczew, who, as a matter of fact, organized many works here in the cemetery. Przodków. My odkrywamy historię swoich rodaków. You are discovering history of your ancestors. We are discovering history of our compatriots. Kamienne tablice. And suddenly we found out these tombstones in the forest, hidden and forgotten. Oczyszczając te tablice, tak naprawdę oczyszczaliśmy swoją pamięć o ludziach, którzy mieszkali na tym miejscu. And cleaning these tombstones was for us cleaning of our memories about the Jewish people who lived here. I think what we can do here is cleaning. If you find anywhere in the cemetery, any branches, any rubbish, any garbage.
I'm going to lift it up.
I feel like an archaeologist.
So woman's, because that one's woman.
I'm finding it really interesting that like the concentration camps are depressing and downwards, and it's a very mourning experience. But here, it's sort of peaceful, and like we're not sad doing this. It's very uplifting because these people died of natural deaths, and it's like the natural progression of life.
I think today is a really significant day, especially to follow up where we've been yesterday. Yesterday we're at Majdanek, and and I think that was probably the hardest part of the trip so far for many people. We walked through the gas chambers and we walked through the crematoriums, and being here today reviving the cemetery, cleaning it up, it's very, very special. It's a very fulfilling feeling, very satisfying feeling.
This cemetery is called the Gensha Cemetery. It's actually one of the most important cemeteries in the Jewish world, because who's lying here is basically a who's who of Warsaw and Polish Jewry. There are those who are very famous here in the traditional world. So you've got the rabbis, you've got the teachers, you've got the scholars, but you have the more modern people here. You've got writers, there are poets, there are actors, there are politicians, there are bankers here as well.
We're standing at the site of, this was a mass grave, because what used to happen, this cemetery was part of the Warsaw Ghetto at one stage, then it was taken out of the Warsaw Ghetto. So when so many people died of starvation, hunger in the ghetto, we buried them in mass graves here. So there are thousands of people who have been buried here, and that's why you've got this line. This circle here was the site, is the site of the mass grave.
I know that my grandmother was buried in the cemetery when I was already away, in the part of Poland annexed by the Soviets. This was in 1940, so that apparently my grandmother was lucky dying before the Holocaust proper.
The gates were like a prison cell. The orphanage priest was ringing the church bell, but she did not go, for she was a Jew.
I suppose it's appropriate that we stand here Erev Shabbat, and it's important this year more than any other year, I suppose, because we stand here at one of the remaining walls of the ghetto, or the Warsaw Ghetto, and we stand here 60 years after the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, probably the most famous occasion of resistance in the context of Jews during the Shoah.
Over the wall, through holes in bricks, at night, at dawn, at noon. Plucky, hungry, artful, I move silently like a shadow.
friend.
Tikocin is your typical stereotype little shtetl that you may have seen in some of the movies like Fiddler on the Roof.
Häufen Pripitschi brennt a Feier und in Stub is heiß und Rebellen kleine Kinderlein der mal gefällt.
Of August, the German rounded up all the Jews of Tikocin and they marched them along the way that we have actually come. These were pits that were dug and the Jews were all shot.
The transports were thrown alive into one of the large pits and machine guns positioned at its edge opened fire in a bloodbath.
Never will a Jew grace the markets and give them life.
We shall remember the day in its noon, the sun that rose over the stake of blood, the skies that stood high and silent.
Du gehst dem letzten Weg, Gott himlen bleien verstellen bleie Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schor, das Wetter beugt an unser Trott, wir sehnen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schor, das Wetter beugt an unser Trott, wir sehnen da.
Being in Treblinka, it pretty much sums up my feeling towards the whole of Poland. I mean, we're standing here, it's a very aesthetically beautiful place. And all that's left here is stones. It's just so hard to comprehend what happened and to understand. It's impossible.
Drown out the victims' screams on their ways to the gas chambers, so that they would not be heard throughout the camp. The SS arranged an orchestra.
Don't cry, just sing. It's a holiday, and we're going outside.
It's very cramped, but it's okay. We're going on a trip to the country. The train travels on. Chug, chug.
Oh, how I wish you were here, Zeta. World War II took many lives. Jews, non-Jews, and many members of my family. In August 1944, they were herded onto cattle trucks and sent to Auschwitz. Zeta, his father, and his brother were chosen to live. His mother and his other brother were selected to the other side. His father died just before liberation. Every cousin and relative he had were murdered. They moved to Australia, where Zeta met an incredible lady, my Nana Rosa. My Zeta lost too much, but he created a family. He created a future. He created me. Oh wow, I wish you were here, Zeta.
My Nana Paula was 16, just like we are now, when her and her family were ordered into one of the two Radom ghettos. She had one brother, Herschel, and three sisters, Rita, Malta, and Nuva. Her entire family, including her two parents, Abram, Natan, and Shana Faya Droniana, were all taken away and murdered in Treblinka.
The highs and lows of this program are most evident arriving in Israel. To be in the Jewish nation after our experience in Poland is inspiring and uplifting, and makes the visit even more special.
Welcome to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
It's good to be home.
הנסיך הקטן מפלוגה ב' לא יראה עוד כיסה שאוכלת פרח בכל שושנה בין קוצים כעת וליבו הקטן קפא.
Holocaust Day, Memorial Day, יום העצמאות.
If you want to build a city and there's a water source along, you're going to try to find the place that's like the highest
עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם, סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם.
What happens here in the winter? It rains. Did everyone understand what happens?
ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם, סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא את נעשה אזי מלך שמו נקרא
השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ואת נשא בחפצו אזי מלך שמו נקרא סלם 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 עלינו ועל כל העולם סלם סלם. Does anybody know the reason why you cover up your eyes? Disturbed by the people next to you. This is an expression of gratitude. Maybe they'll be disturbed by you and we don't want it.
את האור שבשמיים יחד לב אל לב נפתח בתקווה לאהבה.
Open up our hearts, embracing everyone, singing very loud. This is time for love. We're surely gonna win. בלי שום גאווין, our eyes will rise above. Look for peace and love. יחד לב אל לב נפתח ונראה את האור שבשמיים. יחד לב אל לב נפתח ונראה את האהבה. We'll open up our hearts, embracing everyone, singing very loud. This is time for love.
actually go back into my habitat and at home and see how I've changed. See how I've changed. I don't know yet.
It's been an amazing program, but I think just when we get home, it's going to be a shock to us because it's going to become real to us. And I think
one thing that I've noticed, like about myself, is that I've gotten a lot more expressive skills, expressing myself in different ways.
It's funny because it's gone so quickly that it feels like a different ages. Yeah, it's really hard, like.
It's a weird feeling.
I'm going to wake up on Wednesday morning and no one's going to be there.
And I'm going to want tomatoes and breakfast.
We're talking about like where we want to come back together and we'll meet up like in Israel afterwards, and like I'm just not ready to go home.
And I'm going to act differently. I'll take what I've learned, and that I don't think will affect me in my social life.
Open up to people and share with them as much as we can.
I think that the people that are really close to me are going to be really interested in everything that I have to say, and I have a lot to say about this amazing experience.
It feels like we've been away for a year together. Everyone feels like we're a big family. And yeah, I'll miss everyone.
I'm really, really looking forward to coming home and staying in contact with them and pursuing that special bond that we've had over the past 2 weeks.
Hopefully being able to share with them my experiences and tell them how I felt.
I'm really excited to go back and make a difference and use all these experiences
One thing I'm going to miss is the group environment we've been in. We've been together for 2 weeks. We've gotten really close.
I'm going to miss waking up to 45 of my new best friends every morning.
It's absolutely amazing to wake up every morning and like you can be singing the Hebrew song in your head and then knowing everything, basically everyone around you is Jewish and everyone's probably singing the same, everyone knows the exact same song you're thinking in your head.
One thing that I'm not going to miss is the horrors and hell that we went through in Poland, the depths that we sunk to in Majdanek and Auschwitz and Treblinka.
I'm going to miss every single person here because in 2 weeks we've become complete strangers to the closest of friends, and it's just really hard to say goodbye today.
One thing I'm not going to miss is definitely Polish food, which was pretty terrible. And yeah, so looking forward to going home and having normal food.
This is Israeli weather. Very, very hot.
I've never been so excited to be in Israel before. And the whole experience of landing at Ben Gurion Airport and getting everyone singing, cheering, it was incredible.
We all can't comprehend going back to school. Well, first of all, going back to our own individual states in this group that became so close, that really is leaving as one, that came as individuals and are leaving as one. We're going to be broken up back into states and then within their states back into schools. That, I don't know, it's really sad.
I tell you these stories to strengthen you, not to frighten you. The rest is up to you. And we've travelled together and we have gathered stories that at times have frightened us, but at the end of the day will strengthen us for whatever we choose to do.
First and foremost, I want to thank the former team, Tom and Dan, where are you guys, and Nat and Kim. And I don't really know what to say. You are just unbelievable. Rosa and Mimi, our survivors, you've both added an extra dimension to the trip by coming along with us. It's not easy to have the courage to stand up to tell stories and for Rosa to tell about her late husband. And it's just been fantastic to have you both. And the children will never ever forget the stories. And I know, Rosa, with your grandchildren here, I could see when Marcus spoke at Treblinka that the memories that you have been teaching him have been passed on to him and Jennifer and to all of us here. So Mimi and Rosa, thank you very much for being here. Andy is my friend and my fellow marcher. Thank you, Sandy, for everything. And last but not least, it's to you guys, the March of the Living participants 2003. When I saw Herzl's grave today, I thought, Imtir Tzur Ein Zor Agada. If you really wanted it, it isn't a dream. And you've made my dream a reality. There are now 145 Australian students who've participated in March of the Living, so you're part of the March of the Living family. You all came in spite of the adversities that we know that it was a hard, trail coming up to this period of time, but you came and you joined, and I think you've been the best group ever.
We've experienced unbelievable things in the last 2 weeks, and all the groups summarizing the highlights of all the things that they've seen and all the things that they've done. But whether that remains internal, whether that stays in you, is up to you entirely. If we're going to take what we've seen and transfer that flame to all of the people around us when we get back home, it's impossible that any of us could have left this program unchanged for the better. Looking at whatever happens in the world, being able to see it through different lenses, realizing how blooming well lucky we are. Looking around at human rights, understanding other people's suffering. And some lessons in life you can only learn not by reading them in a book, and not even by watching a movie, not even by Steven Spielberg, but by kind of living the lessons. And that's really what we've done now. We went from hell, and we've come almost to heaven. And thank you very much from me to all of you and to all of the staff. It really has been an unbelievable program that for me I will never ever forget. Shalom to you.